Hello? Is this Mr. Bennett? The voice was tiny, nearly drowned out by the wailing sirens and the hiss of traffic, but it cut through, clear, honest, and frightened. Richard Bennett stared at his phone, unknown caller. He never answered those. But some tightness in his chest made him swipe to accept. Speaking. Who is this? Another pause. Then, I'm sorry to call. But, your son is lying on the sidewalk. He's bleeding. Badly. Richard's heart stopped. Not metaphorically. Literally. It stopped. He stood so abruptly his chair skidded back and slammed into the glass wall behind him. A dozen heads in the boardroom turned. His assistant dropped her tablet. What did you just say? His voice was now steel. The girl on the other end sniffed, voice trembling but determined. He was attacked. Some big kids. They ran. I think he hit his head. There's blood. He's not waking up. Where are you? South Bronx. By the park. Near 146th and Willis, next to a basketball court. Richard didn't even hang up properly, just dropped the phone on the table and stormed out of the room, grabbing his coat from the rack without a word. Sir? His assistant called after him. You're in the middle of... But he was already in the elevator, punching the code for rooftop access. He couldn't breathe. Not Ethan. Not his son. 9 minutes later, the NeuroCorps helicopter skimmed across the dusk-stained Manhattan skyline. Richard stared out at the fading sun with glassy eyes, jaw locked, fists clenched in his lap. Memories blurred in and out Ethan's last birthday, when Richard showed up late with a drone and didn't even stay to watch him fly it. The boy's voice that morning, quiet. Bye, Dad. Just 2 words. He hadn't even looked up. Now he might never say anything again. When the chopper landed near the park, Richard jumped out before the rotors stopped spinning. He sprinted. He hadn't run in a decade, but he ran now. An ambulance had just arrived. Paramedics crouched beside a small figure on the pavement, surrounded by cracked asphalt and stained autumn leaves. Ethan! Richard shouted, breath tearing from his throat. That's my son. He shoved past a young officer and dropped to his knees beside the stretcher. Ethan's face was pale. Too pale. Blood streaked his temple, pooling in his dark blonde hair. One eye was swollen. His lips were parted, dry. Richard's voice cracked. Ethan. Ethan. Buddy. Can you hear me? No response. A medic looked up. Sir, please. We need space. He's my son, Richard rasped. He's my only... Another medic gently pulled him back. Sir, he has a strong pulse. But we have to move fast. As they lifted Ethan into the ambulance, Richard turned just enough to see her. She was standing 5 feet away, barely taller than the metal garbage can beside her. A little black girl, maybe 6, wrapped in a red hoodie that swallowed her tiny frame. Her jeans were soaked at the cuffs. Her fingers, raw and chapped, were clenched around a cracked phone. She was shivering, badly. Her lips blue from the cold, but her eyes were locked on Ethan, and in them, Richard saw something he hadn't seen in a long, long time. Pure, human concern. He walked over, footsteps uneven. Are you the one who called me? She nodded, hugging herself. Yes, sir. You stayed with him? I didn't want him to be alone. He was crying before he passed out. Richard swallowed. He looked down at her. Her nose was red, her cheeks windburned. She was wearing sneakers, no socks. You should be inside, somewhere warm. She shook her head. Couldn't leave him. He blinked hard. For a second, he thought the wind was making his eyes sting. Thank you, he said, reaching into his coat for his wallet. Here, let me. She took a step back. No, sir. I don't want money. He froze. What do you want? She stared at the ambulance, lights flashing. I hoped someone would care enough to come for him. Those words hit him like a fist. If this story moved you, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still exists. I'm Richard, he said quietly. I'm Anna. She glanced up at him, and for a terrifying moment, he realized this child, this stranger, had just done more for his son than he had all week. Where's your family? Grandma's home. But she's sick. I can't stay much longer. He hesitated, then pulled off his scarf and gently wrapped it around her shoulders. She blinked up at him. But that's yours. I'll be okay, he said softly. You saved my son. He turned to the paramedic. We're going to Mount Sinai. Right? Yes, sir. Richard stepped into the back of the ambulance, eyes darting back one last time. Anna stood still, scarf around her neck, arms still crossed against the cold. She gave a tiny wave. Not playful. Not dramatic. Just quiet. Richard watched her until the ambulance doors shut. That night, as machines beeped gently in the dim hospital room, Richard sat beside Ethan's bed and said nothing. He didn't know what to say. His son had been attacked in a city where Richard owned 3 buildings and 20 patents, and the only one who stopped to care was a little girl without socks. At 9:42 p.m., Richard walked slowly back down to the ER lobby. To his surprise, Anna was still there, huddled in a plastic chair, sipping from a paper cup of cocoa. His scarf was still wrapped around her neck. She looked up, eyes big. He's stable, Richard said. Still sleeping. But they think he'll be okay. Anna nodded. Good. He sat beside her, the leather of his coat creaking as he leaned back. You know, you didn't have to stay. I know. He glanced at her. Why did you? She shrugged. I don't know. He just looked scared. I know what that feels like. Richard's throat tightened. After a moment, he pulled out his phone. May I? She frowned. May you what? Take your picture. So I don't forget the girl who did what no one else would. Anna smiled. A small, lopsided thing. Just one. Click. Richard would never delete it. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of the heart monitor and the distant murmur of nurses beyond the door. Richard sat motionless beside Ethan's bed, hands clasped tightly in his lap. The boy's face was turned slightly to the side, the bruising on his left cheekbone deeper now, shadowed by the fluorescent ceiling light. His breathing was shallow but rhythmic. Richard leaned forward, elbows on his knees, trying to force himself to feel something other than numbness. Hey, buddy, he said softly, the words foreign in his mouth. It's me, Dad. No response. His throat clenched. Ethan's small hand rested beside his pillow. The knuckles scabbed. His wrist red from where a nurse had drawn blood. Doctor says you're going to be okay, Richard continued. You just need rest. You're strong, stronger than your old man. Still nothing. Richard leaned back and looked up at the ceiling. The cold fluorescent light flickered, casting sterile shadows across the room. This was not how it was supposed to be. Not for his son. Not for any child. He had built an empire from algorithms and capital, made machines predict markets and revolutionize security, but in the one place it mattered in this small, sterile room he was completely helpless. A quiet knock at the door broke the stillness. It opened gently, and a nurse stepped in, middle-aged, kind eyes, clipboard in hand. Mr. Bennett, I'm Nancy, just checking in. He stood up quickly. Is he improving? She offered a small smile. He's stable. No internal bleeding. CT scans are clear. It's mostly bruising, a mild concussion, but no permanent damage. Richard exhaled slowly, the weight in his chest shifting. When will he wake up? It could be any time now, she said gently. Maybe a few more hours. Let his body rest. Mel. She paused, then added, Your assistant dropped off a change of clothes and some food. They're at the front desk. Thank you. Nancy lingered a moment. I also wanted to say, the little girl who called? Anna? That was brave. A lot of adults would have walked past. I know, Richard said quietly. She's still down in the lobby. I think she's waiting for someone. He hesitated. Is her grandmother here yet? Nancy shook her head. We tried calling the number she gave us, but no answer. She might not have anyone. Richard nodded and rubbed a hand across his face. I'll check on her. Downstairs, the ER lobby was half empty. It was almost midnight now. The vending machines hummed in the corner, and the security guard had nodded off behind the desk. Anna sat curled up on the same plastic chair, legs tucked beneath her, scarf still around her neck. The cocoa was gone, replaced by a half-eaten granola bar. She looked up as Richard approached. "Hi," she said. Her voice was quieter now, tired. "He's stable," Richard told her. "The doctors think he'll wake up soon." Anna nodded, eyes flicking down to her sneakers. "You've been here a long time," he added. "Do you want me to call someone for you?" "My grandma's phone don't always work," she said. "Sometimes the battery dies, or the minutes run out. I usually just walk home." "At this hour?" She shrugged. "It's not that far. I know how to stay out of trouble." Richard frowned. "You're 6. 6.5, she corrected. He almost smiled. But it faded fast. The thought of this little girl walking home alone at night in the Bronx hit him in the gut. "Where do you live?" he asked. 146th and Cortlandt. "It's a few blocks. I'll take you," he said. "Come on. I'll make sure you get home safe." She looked uncertain. "You sure?" "Your son's upstairs. He'll be okay for an hour. But I wouldn't be if I let you leave alone." Anna stood, stiffly, her legs aching from sitting so long. Richard gently placed a hand on her shoulder to steady her. Outside, the cold slapped them immediately. Richard slipped off his coat and draped it over her small frame without a word. They walked in silence past shuttered bodegas and flickering streetlights. Garbage bags lined the curbs. The city felt older here, tired, breathing slowly in the dark. "Was your son really gonna die?" Anna asked suddenly. Richard swallowed hard. "He could have, if you hadn't called me." He let the sentence trail off. Anna didn't say anything. They reached a rundown apartment building with cracked steps and a rusty buzzer. Anna led him up 2 flights and stopped at a door marked 3B. She hesitated. "I think Grandma's sleeping." Richard crouched beside her. "Anna, listen." She looked at him, eyes wide. "I don't know what your life is like. I don't pretend to, but I want you to know something." She tilted her head. "You didn't just help Ethan today. You saved him, and I won't forget that." Anna smiled shy, a little unsure. "Thanks." He stood. "Will you be okay tonight?" She nodded. "We always are." He handed her a small card from his wallet. "This has my number. You can call me if you need anything. Anything at all." She stared at it, then tucked it into her hoodie. As she slipped inside the apartment, Richard stood in the hallway for a moment. The sounds of the city seeped through the cracked windows. Distant sirens, a dog barking, a lullaby playing from a television behind one door. He didn't know why, but he felt it, the tremor of something shifting inside him. Something he hadn't let himself feel in years. Gratitude. Back at the hospital, Ethan was stirring. Nancy met Richard outside the room, smiling. "He's waking up." Richard rushed in. Ethan's eyes fluttered open, glassy and dazed. He blinked up at the ceiling, then turned his head, slowly, painfully. "Dad?" he whispered. "I'm here," Richard said, grasping his hand. "I'm right here." Ethan's brow furrowed. "Where's the girl?" Richard's breath caught. "Anna?" Ethan nodded. She stayed with me. She told me it'd be okay." Richard smiled faintly, gripping his son's hand tighter. "Yes," he said. "It will be." But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't over. Not the pain, not the injustice, and not Anna's story. That was only just beginning. The morning light poured softly through the narrow hospital window, illuminating Ethan's pale face. Richard sat beside him, still in the same clothes, the buttons of his shirt wrinkled, the tie hanging loosely around his neck. A nurse had offered a fresh change from the gift shop, but he refused. There were more pressing matters. Ethan was awake now, weak, but awake. His voice was scratchy when he spoke. His words slow, but clear. "She didn't leave," he said again, turning his head slightly toward his father. The girl. She stayed with me the whole time. I know, Richard murmured. She's the one who called me. Ethan's eyes searched his father's face. Why was she there? Richard hesitated. She found you after the attack. She called for help. She did more than anyone else. Ethan looked away. The other kids, they just laughed. One of them filmed it on his phone. A silence settled in the room. Richard's stomach clenched. His jaw tightened. The police had been vague in their report: teenage suspects, unknown motives, no arrests yet. But hearing it from Ethan made it real. A cruel, calculated attack. I'm sorry, son, Richard whispered. I should have. He stopped. What could he say? That he should have been there? That no matter how much money or power he held, he couldn't undo what happened. You came, Ethan said quietly. That's what matters. Richard turned away, blinking hard. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Board meeting postponed. Media requesting statement. Call me, as soon as possible. He shoved the phone back into his coat pocket without reading the rest. There was a knock at the door. Nurse Nancy stepped in, holding a clipboard. Mr. Bennett, she said softly. We need a few minutes to run some tests. You can wait in the family room if you'd like. Richard stood and gently squeezed Ethan's hand. I'll be right back. Outside, he didn't go to the family room. Instead, he walked toward the front desk and asked a question that had been haunting him since dawn. Is Anna still here? The receptionist looked up from her monitor. The little girl from last night? Yes, she frowned. She left early this morning. Said she had to go check on her grandmother. She refused a ride. Walked out on her own. Richard nodded slowly. Did she leave an address? The woman hesitated, then typed a few keys. She listed 304 East 146th Street, apartment 3B. He recognized it. The same building he had walked her to last night, but something gnawed at him, a growing unease. He pulled out his phone and called the number Anna had given the nurse. It went straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. Do you have any contacts at Child Protective Services? He asked the receptionist. She blinked. Excuse me? I need to report a potential case. A minor, possibly without a legal guardian. She raised an eyebrow, but nodded and slid him a contact form. 40 minutes later, Richard stood once more outside apartment 3B. This time, the hallway smelled different, sharper, heavier. A pot of something burnt lingered in the air. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again, louder. Anna? Nothing. He pressed his ear to the door. Silence. Then a faint noise, a cough, deep and scratchy. He tried the doorknob. Unlocked. Inside, the apartment was dim. Dust motes floated in the sunlight. The heat barely worked. A flickering television cast ghostly shadows on the peeling walls. On a worn couch in the corner, an elderly woman lay under a pile of mismatched blankets. Her breathing was labored. Ma'am? Richard approached slowly. I'm looking for Anna. The woman blinked, dazed. She ain't here. Went to the store, or maybe to school. I don't know. Hard to keep track sometimes. He crouched beside her. Are you her grandmother? Suppose so, she murmured. Ain't nobody else here. It's just me and her. And the rent man knocking every other week. Richard looked around. The apartment was clean but empty. Sparse. No food on the counter. A single bowl in the sink. Do you have any other family? Anyone who helps you? She shook her head slowly, coughing again. Just Anna. She's a good girl. Smarter than me, that's for sure. He stood. Is it okay if I wait for her? The woman nodded and drifted off to sleep again. He stayed for 20 minutes. Then 30. Then an hour. No sign of Anna. He stepped outside and called his assistant. I need help locating a child. Her name is Anna Green, 6 years old, lives at this address. No birth certificate or school registration that I can find. I need eyes on her. Sir. That's not exactly legal. I'm not asking you to break the law. Just find someone who knows how to move fast. Understood. Back at the hospital, Ethan was eating Jell-O when Richard returned. Where'd you go? He asked. I was looking for someone. Richard said. She wasn't home. Ethan nodded slowly. She told me something before I blacked out. I don't know if it was real or not. What did she say? She said, even when no one helps, you help. You don't need a reason. Richard sat back, the weight of the day settling onto his shoulders again. She's right, he said, and now it's my turn. Will she be okay? Ethan asked quietly. Richard didn't answer right away. Then, not yet, but I'm going to make sure she will be. He glanced at the photo on his phone again, the one from the hospital, of Anna wrapped in his scarf, half smiling, eyes tired but proud. He didn't know how, but he was going to find her. Not because it made headlines, not because it cleared his conscience, but because someone had to. And this time, he would be the one who didn't look away. The rain came quietly, as if the city itself was trying not to wake anyone. Soft, steady drops tapped against the hospital windows. Inside, the low hum of machines and the occasional beeping of monitors provided a rhythm that had grown familiar to Richard over the last 2 days. Ethan was asleep again. The doctors were pleased with his progress. They said he might be discharged within the next 48 hours. But Richard's mind wasn't on that. It was on a little girl with a cracked phone and 2 big sneakers who had vanished into the city like a ghost. Anna hadn't come home. Not that anyone truly noticed. He had sent a team of private investigators to canvass the neighborhood, check local stores, speak with teachers at the nearby elementary school. Even though no official record of Anna attending had been found, no enrollment, no birth certificate, no paper trail, the grandmother had been hospitalized the night before after collapsing in her apartment. Severe dehydration, pneumonia. No insurance. She remained sedated in a different wing of the hospital. Still unaware that Anna was missing. The apartment had been sealed for inspection. No sign of forced entry. No notes. Nothing. It's like she just disappeared. His lead investigator had told him that morning. Richard leaned against the large window of the hospital's family waiting area, watching water roll down the glass. It reminded him of something Ethan had once said when he was 5. Rain looks like the sky is crying, but it doesn't make any sound. He rubbed his temples. Behind him, footsteps approached. Mr. Bennett. His assistant's voice came softly. We got a hit. He turned sharply. Where? A woman down on 149th, says a little girl matching Anna's description came by her corner store yesterday morning. She bought crackers and a juice box, paid in coins. No adult with her. Did she say where she went? She said the girl asked if she could sleep in the alley behind the store. When the woman told her no, the girl walked off. Eastbound. Richard closed his eyes. That was nearly 24 hours ago. We're expanding the search radius. But, sir, if I may. He raised an eyebrow. We've contacted child services. They've opened a formal inquiry. They want to take the grandmother into custody when she recovers. Richard frowned. They'll separate them. Most likely, yes. He stood straighter. I won't allow that. Not after everything Anna's done. His assistant hesitated. With all due respect, sir, the system doesn't care who you are. If there's no record, she's just another name on a list. Richard's jaw tightened. Then we'll change the list. He didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. He returned to Anna's neighborhood, this time dressed in a hoodie and jeans, face barely visible beneath a baseball cap. No security, no entourage. He wanted to see it. As she saw it. Alone. Small. He walked down Cortlandt Avenue. Past the deli where Anna might have used coins. Past a row of overflowing dumpsters. Past the basketball court. Still stained faintly with the blood of his son. And then he saw it, a small bundle huddled in a stairwell, half covered by a torn garbage bag, a red hoodie. Dirt-smudged cheeks. His breath caught. Anna? He whispered. She flinched, curled tighter. Go away. It's me, Richard. She turned slowly. Her eyes were rimmed red, her lips cracked. The scarf he'd given her was now dirty, the ends dragging on the concrete. Her voice was hoarse. I didn't want anyone to find me. Why not? He asked gently, crouching beside her. 'Cause they'll take me away from Grandma. I know how it goes. I've seen it with the Jackson kids. One day they were here, then poof, they were gone. His heart cracked clean down the middle. "I'm not them," he said. "And you're not alone." She looked at him suspiciously. "Why do you care? Your kid's safe now. You don't need me anymore." Richard didn't answer immediately. Then, slowly, "You remind me of someone I forgot I used to be. Someone who didn't walk past pain. Someone who gave a damn." She looked down, fiddling with a loose thread on her sleeve. "Come with me," he said, "just for tonight. You can sleep, eat, shower. Tomorrow, we'll figure it out, together." Anna didn't move. Richard reached into his coat and pulled out the photo on his phone. "Remember this?" It was the picture he'd taken of her in the hospital, scarf wrapped around her neck, that quiet half-smile on her face. "You said I could take one. Just one." I look at this and think, if she could care for someone else when no one cared for her, maybe there's hope for the rest of us. She didn't say anything, but her eyes glistened. Finally, she stood. They rode in silence to Richard's townhouse in the Upper West Side. His driver, stunned to see a child in tattered clothes entering the rear seat with his billionaire boss, said nothing. Richard appreciated that. At the townhouse, Anna hesitated on the threshold. "It's okay," he said. "Come in." The inside was warm, cozy, despite the modern decor. A fire burned gently in the living room. Framed photos lined the walls, most of them recent. Ethan with his robotics kit. Ethan at the lake house. Ethan and his mother, back when she still smiled. Before the divorce, Anna stood in the foyer like a stray dog, unsure whether to run or stay. "First rule," Richard said gently. "You don't have to ask permission to eat." She looked at him. "Second rule. If you're scared, say so. No one gets mad." Her shoulders relaxed, just a little. He led her to the guest room, showed her the bathroom, left a pair of Ethan's old pajamas folded on the bed. "Sleep as long as you want. Tomorrow, we talk." Anna nodded, but before he could leave, she called softly, "Mr. Bennett?" He turned. "Is it okay if I see Ethan tomorrow?" He smiled. "He asked about you." She didn't smile back, but her eyes did. As Richard closed the door behind him, he leaned against it and exhaled deeply. He didn't know what he had just started, but somehow, this little girl had stepped into his life like a storm, messy, raw, and impossible to ignore. And for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of what came next. Anna woke to silence. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The room was too soft, too warm, too clean. The bed beneath her was like a cloud compared to the sunken couch cushions back in her grandmother's apartment. A faint smell of lavender filled the air, and light poured gently through the tall window. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. The red hoodie she'd clung to for days was neatly folded at the foot of the bed, alongside Ethan's pajamas, too big, but warm. Outside the door, she heard faint voices. A woman speaking softly. Then Richard's deeper voice responding. She crept down the hallway, barefoot, stepping quietly like she always did when Grandma was sleeping. At the end of the hall, the voices grew clearer. "She'll need a physical evaluation, and we still can't find any official record of her birth," the woman was saying. "If CPS gets involved now, you may lose any chance of keeping her with the grandmother." Richard's reply was calm, but firm. "Then we don't let them take her. I'll provide temporary guardianship if I have to." Anna froze. "Guardianship," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. The woman turned and saw her first. Middle-aged, sharp suit, gentle smile. "There you are, sweetheart. Good morning." Richard looked up, surprised but not startled. "Anna, did you sleep okay?" She nodded, staring at the woman. "Who is she?" "This is Diane," Richard said, stepping closer. "She's a lawyer, a very good one. She's helping me. Help you." Anna crossed her arms. "I don't need a lawyer. I just want to see my grandma." "You will," Diane said quickly. "She's still at the hospital, but we have to make sure you're safe in the meantime." Anna frowned. "Safe from who?" Richard crouched down to meet her eyes. "Not everyone's trying to hurt you, Anna. Some people just don't know how to help." She studied him. "You're not like them. I've been like them," he said softly. "That's why I'm trying not to be now." Later that afternoon, Richard brought Anna back to the hospital. Ethan was sitting up in bed, playing with a tablet. He looked up and smiled as soon as he saw her. "Hey," he said, setting the tablet aside. "You found her?" Anna stepped in shyly, holding a paper bag Richard had given her with lunch inside. "Hey." Ethan scooted over and patted the space beside him on the bed. She hesitated, then sat carefully. "You look better," she said. "I feel better, thanks to you." They sat in silence for a moment, both staring at the television, which was playing a muted cartoon. Then Ethan turned. "Why did you help me?" Anna blinked. "What do you mean? You didn't know me." She shrugged. "Didn't matter. You were hurt." Ethan looked down. "A lot of people saw me." No one stopped. "I noticed," she said almost bitterly. "That's why I don't wait around for grown-ups anymore." Richard, standing by the door, swallowed hard. The nurse entered and gave them some privacy. Richard stepped out to the hallway, running a hand down his face. He was used to hard decisions, mergers, boardroom battles, stock crises, but this was different. This was personal, and for the first time in years, he felt the weight of responsibility in his chest, not just on paper. In the cafeteria later, Anna sat across from Ethan at a small table, both working on grilled cheese sandwiches. She talked more now about her school that didn't have enough books, about how Grandma used to be a choir singer, about how she wanted to learn to draw but didn't have real pencils. Ethan listened quietly, then pulled a pen from his bedside drawer and handed it to her. "It's not a pencil," he said, "but it writes smooth." Anna smiled, touched the pen to her palm like it was gold. "Thanks." Richard watched from a distance, unnoticed. That evening, after Anna returned to the townhouse, she wandered into Richard's study while he was on a video call. Books lined the shelves, some leather-bound, others newer. She trailed her fingers along the spines, pausing at one with gold lettering, "Leadership Through Crisis." She scoffed softly. Richard ended his call and noticed her standing there. "Find something interesting?" he asked. She didn't turn around. "You always been rich?" He paused. "I grew up in Detroit. Small house. Single mother. No heat half the time." Anna looked over her shoulder. "Then why'd you forget?" He blinked. "Forget? What it's like to be small, and cold, and scared." He sat on the edge of his desk, hands folded. "Maybe because I got tired of being scared. Maybe I thought money would fix everything. Did it?" He looked at her for a long time. It didn't." She turned back to the shelf. "I don't think I like books with gold on them. They always sound like they're lying." Richard chuckled. "Fair enough." Anna reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a small notebook, its corners bent, the cover torn. "I write stuff down," she said. "Stuff I want to remember." He nodded. "Can I see?" She hesitated, then flipped it open and showed him a page. It was a list. "Don't trust people who smile too fast. Always count your change. The alley behind Martinez's has a dry corner when it rains. Sometimes people care, but too late. If you find someone who helps without asking why, don't forget them." He read it silently, then looked at her. "You forgot one," he said. She tilted her head. "Sometimes, you have to let people help you, even when you're scared." Anna gave a soft shrug. "I'll think about it." That night, after she'd gone to bed, Richard sat alone in the study. The photo of Anna on his phone stared back at him. He picked up the gold-lettered book on leadership and tossed it aside. Then, he opened a new file on his computer. Title: Project Guardian. It was time to build something that mattered not for shareholders, not for legacy, but for one child who reminded him what it meant to feel again. And he wasn't going to let her disappear. Not now. Not ever. Richard Bennett wasn't a man easily rattled. He had faced congressional hearings, hostile takeovers, and billion-dollar lawsuits. But sitting across from a state child welfare representative with a clipboard and a forced smile was making him sweat. "We appreciate your concern, Mr. Bennett," the woman said, voice clipped, professional. Her badge read, S. Jacobs, CPS. But there's a process in place. We'll handle the investigation from here. They were seated in his private office, one of the quiet, wood-paneled rooms on the top floor of his company's Manhattan tower. He had insisted on meeting here, hoping the weight of the space would push things in his favor. But Jacobs was unmoved. "I understand procedure," Richard said, folding his hands. "But I'm not talking about theory. I'm talking about a child who is currently in my care because she had nowhere else to go." She's not officially in your care," Jacobs corrected. "Not yet." Richard leaned forward. "Do you know what she's been through? Have you spoken to her? Have you walked the streets she walks every day?" The woman blinked. "We don't operate emotionally, Mr. Bennett. Our job is to protect children within the framework of the law. If her grandmother is deemed medically unfit, and there is no known next of kin, Anna will enter foster care. That system is already overburdened and underfunded. You'll throw her into a home with strangers when she has someone who—" "You're not family," Jacobs interrupted. "I will be," he said quickly, voice tightening. "I've already initiated emergency guardianship proceedings. My legal team is filing the paperwork." The agent exhaled, her tone softening slightly. "I'm not here to make enemies. But I've seen dozens of cases like this, Mr. Bennett. One good deed doesn't automatically make someone a parent." Richard's voice dropped. "This isn't a deed. This is a promise." Jacobs stared at him a moment, then nodded politely and stood. "I'll be in touch. But I suggest you prepare for a full evaluation. Background checks, home visits, psychological assessments, everything." "Fine," he said. "You'll find what you're looking for." As she left, Richard turned to the window. His reflection stared back at him, eyes sunken, tie loose. He looked less like a billionaire and more like a man standing at the edge of something terrifying. He didn't care. That evening, Anna stood at the foot of Ethan's hospital bed, holding a deck of Uno cards. "You sure you want to do this?" she asked. Ethan grinned. "I'm injured. Be gentle." "No promises." Richard watched from the doorway as they played. Laughter echoed between the beeps and monitors. Ethan accused her of cheating. Anna called him a sore loser. For the first time in days, Richard saw a hint of childhood on their faces. After 3 rounds and 2 intense challenges over a draw 4, Anna sat back, triumphant. "Told you," she said smugly. "You're a card shark," Ethan groaned. "How do you keep winning?" "I grew up hustling kids on the stoop," she said with a smirk. "You learn fast or go hungry." Richard stepped in with a smile. "Dinner's ready if you're both up for it. I had something brought in. Alna perkidup. Is it real food or hospital food disguised as real food?" Richard chuckled. "Italian, lasagna and garlic bread, chocolate pudding if you clean your plate." Ethan gave her a look. "Don't race. He's serious about the pudding." Later that night, with Ethan resting again and the dishes cleared, Anna wandered into the guest bedroom at the townhouse. Richard found her sitting on the floor beside the window, watching the traffic below. He sat down beside her, saying nothing for a moment. Finally she spoke. "They're gonna take me, aren't they?" He looked at her. Her small shoulders were rigid, her hands clenched. "They're going to try," he admitted. "But I won't let them." She turned to him, eyes guarded. "Why?" "Because you matter. Because you saved my son. Because I believe you deserve more than what the system is offering." Her lips trembled. "What if I mess up?" "You will. Everyone does. But that doesn't mean you stop deserving care." Anna was quiet for a long time. "When I was 5, she whispered. "They almost took me away once before. Said Grandma wasn't doing enough. But she loved me. She tried so hard. I know she did. She'd sing me to sleep even when her lungs hurt. She gave me her half of the soup when we ran out of food. People don't see that stuff. They just see what's broken." Richard nodded. "Maybe that's why it takes someone who's been broken to see what matters." She looked at him. "You?" He smiled softly. "More than you know." The next day, Richard's legal team filed for emergency custody. It was an uphill battle. CPS pushed back. They questioned his motives, citing public image concerns. Media outlets caught wind of the story. Billionaire rescues street child who saved his son, and turned it into a glossy headline. But Richard didn't give interviews. He didn't make statements. He made promises, and he intended to keep them. 2 days later, Grandma Mabel awoke in her hospital bed. Richard was there, holding a bouquet of daffodils, Anna's idea. Mabel blinked. "You again?" He smiled. "Yes, ma'am." "Anna's safe." She sighed, her face older than her years. "They gonna take her from me?" "They want to," Richard said. "But I'm fighting it." Mabel's eyes filled with tears. "Don't let them put her in some stranger's house. That child. She's got fire. But she's scared. She needs someone who sees both." "Oh, I do," Richard said. She stared at him, measuring something behind his eyes. Then she nodded slowly. "Promise me you won't let her disappear." "I swear." Mabel closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. "She always said you were real." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "She'd watch those news clips of you on television, talking about saving the world with tech and money. She said, 'One day he's gonna show up. He's gonna show up for someone like me.' I thought it was silly." Richard's chest tightened. It wasn't. He stood, placing the flowers in a vase beside her bed. "I'll take care of her," he said. And for the first time in years, Richard Bennett, a man who could predict markets, influence elections, and bend the world with his will, realized that his most important work wouldn't be patented. It would be protected, one child at a time. 2 weeks had passed since Anna first stepped into Richard's world, and already the rhythm of both their lives had changed. She now had a room of her own at the townhouse, no longer just a guest room, but a space with a nameplate she crafted from construction paper and glitter. Anna's place. Knock before entering. The walls, once blank and cold, now held her drawings, sunsets, trees, her grandmother's smile, Ethan's goofy face. Each line was crooked, imperfect, and alive. Ethan, now fully recovered and back home, had become her closest friend. The two spent hours building Lego cities, debating superhero rankings, and plotting out comic book stories on the living room floor. But outside the comfort of their newfound family, the world continued to turn coldly. Richard sat in the polished marble conference room of the family court of Manhattan. His attorney, Diane, sat beside him, flipping through a file thick with affidavits, health records, witness statements, and letters of support. Across from them, the CPS legal team sat with stiff posture and unreadable expressions. The judge, an older black woman named Judge Marilyn Cook, adjusted her glasses and glanced at Richard. "Mr. Bennett," she said, voice steady, "you're asking this court to grant emergency guardianship of a minor, with no legal relation to you, no prior contact, and no official adoption in motion." "Why?" Richard leaned forward slightly. He had rehearsed this moment in his mind 100 times. "Because she saved my son's life," he said plainly. "And I realized while I have every luxury in the world, she has none. She was invisible. But she matters, not just to me, but to anyone who believes a child's value isn't defined by a zip code or a birth certificate." Cook's eyes didn't leave his. "That's a noble answer. But this court deals in facts, not sentiments. Children can't live on promises." "I'm not offering promises," Richard replied. "I'm offering a life." The room went quiet. Diane slid a folder forward. "Your Honor. Within this file, you'll find a detailed breakdown of the support structure Mr. Bennett has created for Anna. Private tutoring, therapy, medical care, a secured trust fund, and importantly, ongoing coordination with her grandmother's medical team to ensure future reunification is possible." One of the CPS lawyers cleared her throat. "Your Honor, with respect, this feels more like charity than parental readiness. Mr. Bennett has no experience raising children beyond his own. He's also a public figure, under constant media scrutiny. That kind of attention can be damaging to a vulnerable child." Richard's eyes narrowed. "She's already been damaged. Not by the press, but by being forgotten." Cook raised her hand to stop the back and forth. "Mr. Bennett, I need to be sure you understand what you're asking. This isn't a headline. This is a lifetime." "I know," he said, voice low. "And I'm ready for it." She sat back, contemplative. "I'll take it under advisement." A decision will be made within 48 hours. That evening, back at the townhouse, Anna was unusually quiet. She sat on the porch swing, wrapped in a soft blanket, staring at the darkening skyline. Richard approached with 2 mugs, 1 hot cocoa, 1 chamomile tea. He handed her the cocoa. "Storm's coming," he said gently. She didn't respond right away. Then, "Do you think they'll let me stay?" "I hope so." She looked up at him. "You don't know?" "No one does. Not yet. The judge has to look at everything before deciding." Anna nodded slowly. "I heard CPS talking the last time they came. They think I'm just looking for a meal ticket. Like I'm using you." Richard knelt beside her. "You're not, and you don't have to prove that to anyone. But what if they don't care?" she whispered. "What if they send me somewhere far, somewhere I don't know anyone?" He looked at her for a long moment, then placed a hand gently over hers. "Then I'll find you again." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Promise?" "I don't make promises I can't keep." She leaned into his shoulder, letting the tears fall. For the first time since he'd known her, she let herself cry, not from pain, not from fear, but from the weight of finally being believed. The next morning, Anna and Ethan were having breakfast pancakes and strawberries when the doorbell rang. Richard opened it to find Diane, holding a thin envelope. "They moved faster than expected," she said, handing it to him. He opened it without a word. Diane watched his eyes scan the contents. "What does it say?" "She ruled in our favor," he said, voice quiet, almost stunned. "I have emergency guardianship." Diane smiled. "It's temporary for 90 days, but it's a major win. It buys us time." Richard nodded slowly. Then his expression changed an unfamiliar mix of relief and fear. "Now I have to live up to it." When he told Anna, she didn't scream or jump. She just stood there, clutching the hem of her shirt, eyes wide. "You mean I can stay? For now?" "The judge said we have 90 days to show this works." Anna looked at him, searching for cracks in his voice. "Will you still want me? After 90 days? "I'll want you for 9,000, he said. She ran into his arms. And for the first time, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, home wasn't something you were born into. Maybe, sometimes, home found you. But elsewhere, in a corner of the Bronx, behind a rusted metal door, a man with yellowed teeth and a crooked scar tapped a cheap phone against his palm. He'd heard the story, read the headlines, watched the girl on the news. "I know her," he muttered. Another man looked up. "That the same kid who used to steal from old Mrs. Green's purse?" He nodded. "She's got herself a rich daddy now. Looks like she forgot where she came from." The man grinned slowly. Maybe it's time someone reminded her. And just like that, the past Anna had run from began to stir. Not everyone was ready to let her go. 3 weeks into Anna's new life, things began to feel almost normal. She had a morning routine now: wake up at 7:30. Brush her teeth in the bathroom with heated floors. Pour cereal into a bowl that wasn't chipped, and sit across from Ethan as they watched cartoons and argued over who got the last blueberry waffle. Some mornings, she helped the housekeeper fold towels. Other mornings, she spent hours in the library, tracing maps in old atlases and trying to imagine what Paris or Seattle smelled like. Richard had enrolled her in a private tutoring program at home, and her assigned teacher, Miss Alvarez, treated her like a scientist in the making, not a charity case. Richard had even let her help design a mural for the office hallway in his foundation's new building. She chose sunflowers, bold and bright, because they always look for the light, she said. But the shadows didn't disappear. Not really. That Saturday evening, as the wind swept golden leaves across the Bennett townhouse driveway, Anna stood by the mail slot, sorting through the daily bundle. Most were boring envelopes, bills, legal updates, a letter from the hospital. But one stood out. No stamp, no return address. Just her name, printed in shaky black marker. Anna Green. She hesitated, heart fluttering. She didn't tell Richard. Instead, she slipped it into her hoodie pocket and ran upstairs. Later, in her room, door closed, she opened the letter. The paper was wrinkled, torn from a cheap notebook. The handwriting was jagged and messy, but she recognized it instantly. You don't belong with them. You forgot who you are. Come back before someone reminds you the hard way. No name, no signature, but she didn't need one. She knew exactly who sent it. Reggie. He used to hang around her old block, late 20s, always high or looking for someone who was. He'd helped her once when her grocery bag ripped, then demanded she run errands for him, delivering things she didn't ask about, picking up things she didn't understand. She'd stopped helping him weeks before the night she found Ethan, but she hadn't forgotten the way he looked at her when she told him no that last time. It wasn't anger, it was ownership, and now he wanted her back. Downstairs, Richard was in the study, reviewing foundation reports and zoning approvals. Anna came in quietly and perched on the edge of the armchair. He glanced up. "Hey, kiddo, everything all right?" She nodded too quickly. He narrowed his eyes. "You sure?" Anna hesitated, then forced a smile. "Can I sleep in Ethan's room tonight?" Richard set the papers aside. "Did something happen?" She bit her lip. "Just nightmares again." He watched her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, but if those nightmares ever start writing letters, I want to know." She looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" He stood, walked over, and gently reached into the front pocket of her hoodie. He pulled out the folded note. Anna's eyes widened. "I saw you slip it in when you came in with the mail," he said softly. "Didn't want to scare you." Her throat tightened. "I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize," he said, crouching so their eyes met. "You need to tell me who Reggie Island." "Ugh." She blinked hard, then nodded. She told him everything, how Reggie had helped her, how he'd threatened her when she stopped doing errands, how he used to stand outside her building for hours. Richard's face remained calm, but Anna saw the storm behind his eyes. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" he asked. "I didn't want you to send me away," she whispered. He took her hand. "Anna, listen to me. There is nothing you can do that will make me send you away. Nothing. You're not a burden. You're not a case. You're part of this family." A tear slipped down her cheek. "Okay," she whispered. The next day, Richard called a private security consultant he'd worked with years ago during a corporate extortion case. A man named Marcus Kane. Ex-military. Quiet. Precise. "He's just a small-time hustler," Richard said during their meeting. "But I want eyes on Anna's old neighborhood. Discreet. We're not starting a war, we're sending a message." Marcus nodded. Message received. By sunset, Marcus had 2 men walking the Bronx block. The moment Reggie showed his face near the old building, he was followed, photographed, and quietly warned. "She's not yours anymore," one of the men said. "You go near her again, you'll wish you hadn't." Reggie had laughed it off. But when he came home that night and found his apartment door ajar and his favorite shoes gone, replaced by a single sunflower taped to the wall, he got the message. Meanwhile, at the townhouse, Anna began to settle again. She still checked the windows, still flinched when she heard footsteps too close behind her. But slowly, she started drawing again. She added a sunflower to the corner of every page. At night, she sat with Richard in the study, reading old books aloud. Sometimes she asked questions about Ethan's mom. Other times she asked about Richard's childhood. "What was your favorite thing when you were my age?" she asked one night. "Baseball," he said. "I used to pretend I'd play for the Yankees, until I realized I couldn't hit a curveball to save my life." Anna grinned. "You ever regret not playing?" "No," he said. "I regret not staying close to the people who believed I could." She looked down. "I used to think the only way to stay safe was to be invisible." "Not anymore," Richard said. "Now you have people who'll stand in front of you." Anna glanced at the sunflower she'd drawn in the corner of her notebook. "Yeah," she said. "I think maybe I do." But just as things began to quiet again, a story broke. A journalist hungry for an exclusive had tracked down parts of Anna's past. A headline ran across 3 local papers and a viral blog. "From the streets to the penthouse. Who is the girl living with Richard Bennett?" The article included blurred images of her walking to school with Ethan. A quote from a distant neighbor claiming Anna was always getting into trouble. An anonymous source from CPS questioning the wisdom of letting a billionaire raise a child with trauma history. Richard threw the newspaper across the room. "Who gave them this?" he growled. His assistant was pale. "No one from your team. They must have paid someone off near her old building." Anna didn't cry, but she didn't talk for the rest of the day. When Richard asked if she was okay, she just whispered, "I thought I was safe." He sat beside her on the porch swing that night, the city glowing faintly in the distance. "You are," he said. "They're trying to make me small again." He shook his head. "No article gets to define you. No stranger knows what you've survived." She looked at him. "Will it ever stop?" He sighed. "Number, but you'll grow louder than their noise. That's the only way." "Whoa." And as the wind carried autumn leaves across the yard, Anna leaned into him not as a guest, not as a rescue, but as something more. Someone finally learning that being seen didn't have to mean being hunted. It could mean being held. The Monday after the article dropped, Anna walked into the school building with her hoodie pulled low and her shoulders tight. She had been enrolled at the prestigious Westbridge Elementary just 2 weeks prior. A place filled with sculpted hedges, polished marble floors, and students with last names that appeared on donor plaques. But now, every hallway felt like a spotlight. Every whisper felt like it was about her. She could feel the shift. At first, the students were curious, polite. A few even asked to sit with her at lunch. But after the article, the warmth disappeared like steam on glass. She used to sleep in stairwells. One girl hissed behind her hand. "She's not really his daughter," said another. "She just got lucky." Anna didn't flinch, not outwardly. But her insides churned. She knew this language. She knew the tone. It was the same one Reggie used to use when he told her she didn't belong with clean people. By the time lunch rolled around, she sat alone. Ethan came late, clutching his tray. "Sorry," he said, plopping down across from her. "I had to talk to Miss Green about my science project." Anna didn't respond. He tilted his head. "You okay?" "I'm fine," she muttered. Ethan leaned closer. "Don't listen to them. They don't know you." Anna traced a crack in the lunch table's surface with her finger. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong here." He pushed his tray aside. "You know what I think? You make them uncomfortable because you remind them that the world isn't as perfect as their lunchboxes." Anna finally looked up, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. That sounded smart. "Did you read that somewhere?" "Nope. Made it up just now." He grinned. "Pretty good, huh?" Anna laughed softly. "Yeah, it was." Meanwhile, Richard sat in a tense boardroom at his foundation's headquarters, facing 6 directors who looked increasingly uncomfortable. The fallout from the article had begun to hit not just in whispers, but in funding. "Several of our corporate partners have asked for clarity on your situation," said Malcolm, a thin man with silver glasses. "They want to know if the foundation is being used as a personal charity." "It's not," Richard said flatly. "Public perception is everything," another board member added. "We've worked hard to establish the foundation as professional, impartial. I'm not asking for their permission to care about a child." Richard interrupted. "And if they want to pull funding because I chose to protect a girl who saved my son's life, then they were never partners. They were investors. And I'm not selling shares in compassion." The room went silent. Diane, seated at the far end, smiled faintly. Richard stood. "Let them walk. We'll survive without them, but I won't run my life according to public gossip." That evening, Anna didn't speak much. She picked at her food, answered in one-word replies, and excused herself to bed early. Richard knocked on her door an hour later. "Can I come in?" "Sure," came the muffled reply. He entered and found her lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling. Her notebook was open beside her. Half a sunflower sketched across the page. "I read the article," she said without looking at him. "I saw the comments online." Richard sat at the foot of the bed. "That was a mistake. Don't read the comments. They aren't written by people who know you." But what if they're right?" she asked, turning to face him. "What if I'm just temporary?" "You're not," he said firmly. Anna sat up, crossing her legs. They say you're just doing this to fix your reputation, that I'm your project. Do you feel like a project? She shook her head. I feel like someone trying not to mess it all up. Richard sighed. Anna, every person in this house is trying not to mess it up. Me, Ethan, even the cat, and we don't even own a cat. That got a laugh out of her. He reached for her notebook and flipped a few pages. One caught his eye, a list titled, Things I'm Afraid of. Only one item was written so far, going back. He closed the notebook gently. You're not going back. Not to Reggie. Not to that building. Not to being invisible. Her lip trembled. How do you know? Because I'm not letting go, no matter how loud they get out there. Later that week, Anna's tutor, Miss Alvarez, introduced a poetry assignment. Write something true, she told the class. Something real. Not pretty, not polished, just honest. Anna stared at her blank paper for a long time. Then she began to write. Her poem was titled The Hallway. It spoke of walking down corridors where no one saw her. Of sleeping next to broken heaters and waking to sirens. Of finding a boy bleeding on the concrete and choosing to stay. Even though her legs told her to run, she didn't read it aloud, but Miss Alvarez did. With permission, she shared it anonymously during a school assembly the next week. Students sat in silence as her voice echoed through the auditorium. When the poem ended, there was a hush. Then, slowly, a wave of applause. Anna sat in the second row, shrinking at first, then straightening. Later, as she exited, a girl she didn't know tapped her arm. Hey, the girl said. That was you, wasn't it? Anna paused it. Maybe. I liked it, the girl said. It made me feel like I wasn't the only one. That night, Anna added a new line to her notebook under Things I'm Afraid of Being Seen. Then, in smaller letters underneath, but maybe it's not always bad. Meanwhile, across the city, Reggie sat in a bar. Scrolling through the same article, little brat got herself famous, he muttered. The man beside him grunted. Should have known she'd bring trouble. She always had that fire. Reggie leaned back, tapping his cigarette against the edge of his glass. Still got time to put it out. And just like that, the echo of Anna's past stirred again, this time louder, closer, and ready to knock. The first sign came on a Wednesday. Ethan and Anna were walking home from school, well, not home exactly, but to the office, where Richard had scheduled a late meeting and promised pizza afterward. Their driver, Mason, had parked a block away due to roadwork. So the two kids were walking the final stretch, chatting about whether or not pineapple belonged on pizza. I say yes, Ethan insisted, tossing his backpack over one shoulder. Anna wrinkled her nose. You just like controversy. They both laughed until Anna stopped walking. A figure leaned against a light pole across the street, hoodie drawn up, face mostly shadowed. But she knew that slouch. That grin, that cigarette dangling between two fingers. Reggie. Her breath caught in her throat. Anna? Ethan asked, stepping closer. What is it? Nothing, she said quickly, pulling her hoodie tighter and lowering her head. Let's just go. He followed her without question. But she could feel Reggie's eyes following her, burning through traffic in the chilly fall air. She didn't look back. Not once. By the time they reached the car, her hands were shaking. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat on her windowsill, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, eyes locked on the distant city lights. Richard knocked softly and entered without waiting. Can't sleep? She shook her head. Want to talk? Number. He came anyway, sitting beside her. I used to stay up like this when Ethan was little, especially after his mom passed. Every creak in the house made me think someone was trying to take him from me. She glanced sideways. Did anyone try? He looked out the window. Not physically, but the world doesn't always need hands to do harm. Anna hesitated, then whispered, I saw him. Richard turned to her. Who? Reggie. The name hit the room like a dropped stone in still water. Where? Outside school. I didn't say anything because I didn't want you to panic. He took a breath. I don't panic, I plan. Anna's eyes shimmered. Is he going to hurt me? No, Richard said firmly. Not while I'm breathing. The next morning, Marcus Kane was already waiting in Richard's office, sipping black coffee. He made himself known then, Marcus said, after hearing the update. Yes, Richard said. Too bold to be random. Marcus nodded. I'll double the security detail. But if you want this done right, we need to make sure he understands there's no loophole. No chance. He doesn't just need to disappear, he needs to understand. I don't want violence. Marcus raised an eyebrow. I never said violence. But fear is a language he understands. Later that afternoon, Anna found an envelope in her locker. No name this time, just a scrap of brown paper, folded roughly. She opened it and read the message scrawled in pencil. You can play rich all you want. But you and I both know. You ain't one of them. She stared at the note for a long time before slowly folding it and slipping it into her math book. Then she walked into the main office and asked to speak with the principal. Richard arrived 20 minutes later. Anna stood in the principal's office, arms crossed, expression unreadable. She didn't cry, the principal said, clearly impressed. She didn't run. She said she wanted to report a safety threat. I want security cameras checked, Anna added. If they're real. If not, you should fix that. Richard looked at her, really looked, and realized something had shifted. She wasn't just scared, she was angry. And angry Anna was dangerous. 2 days later, Marcus's team tracked Reggie to a dingy motel on the outskirts of Queens. They didn't confront him, not directly. But a black SUV appeared outside his window every night at exactly 10 p.m. He found his room tossed one evening, nothing stolen, just rearranged. His shoes swapped. His toothpaste replaced with an identical tube full of salt. One night, a sunflower was left on his windshield. The petals were burned at the tips. Reggie stopped smiling after that, but he didn't leave. Saturday morning, Anna woke to find Richard sitting in the kitchen with a mug of coffee and a manila envelope. What's that? She asked, wiping sleep from her eyes. Information, he said. About Reggie. Anna sat across from him. What kind of information? He has a record. Petty crimes. A few assault charges. Nothing big enough to lock him up forever, but enough to make him slippery. Why does he want me back? Richard considered. Control. Familiarity. Some people can't stand to see someone rise above what they've escaped. Anna exhaled slowly. Then let's make sure I stay above it. He tilted his head. How? Let's tell the truth. All of it. Richard blinked. You want to go public? She nodded. Not to be famous, but to be clear. I'm not hiding anymore. By Monday, Richard's PR team had prepared a statement. Not a press conference, just a recorded video. Anna, sitting between Richard and Ethan, told her story plainly. How she grew up. What she saw. What she did to help a stranger. How people tried to silence her. I'm not a headline, she said at the end, voice steady. I'm not a pity case. I'm not a problem to be solved. I'm a person. And I'm not going anywhere. The video was posted on the Foundation's social media account at noon. By 3 p.m., it had over 1.4 million views. By evening, the comments poured in, teachers praising her bravery. Former foster kids thanking her for speaking out. Survivors of violence saying she gave them hope. One comment stood out. It read, "She's more grown than half the adults I know. Protect her at all costs." That night, Reggie watched the video in the same bar he always sat in. His face twisted. She thinks she's untouchable now, he muttered. The bartender leaned over. Careful, man. That girl's got people. Reggie slammed his drink down. So do I. But even as he said it, he knew something had changed. Anna wasn't running anymore. And the scariest kind of strength was the kind that didn't yell, it stood still. He lit a cigarette with shaking hands. The past was slipping from his grip, and the girl he thought he could control had already walked beyond his reach. Rain fell heavy that Thursday, the kind that painted the windows gray and soaked the streets in silence. Anna sat on the edge of the couch in the living room, her knees pulled up to her chest. The news had gone quiet for a day, but her world felt louder than ever. Richard was in a conference call upstairs, Ethan was at a playdate, and the house felt oddly still without their usual noise. Then the intercom buzzed. She jumped. Anna, Mason's voice crackled through. There's a woman at the gate. Says she's your grandmother. Her breath caught. What? Richard was downstairs in less than a minute. Towel around his neck. Hair damp from the shower. Did he say, your grandmother? Anna nodded slowly, stunned. But I haven't seen her in months. Richard looked at her, then at the intercom. Mason, let her in. Slowly, bring her to the front porch. Anna and I will meet her there. Anna's hands trembled as she followed Richard to the entryway. The front door opened just as Mason escorted a frail-looking woman under an umbrella. She wore a floral headscarf, a long coat, a size too big, and eyes that had known both struggle and softness. Miss Loretta Green? Richard asked. The woman looked up. Yes, sir. That's me. Anna stepped forward slowly. Grandma? Loretta blinked back tears. Oh, baby. I didn't think I'd ever see you again. Anna hesitated, then rushed into her grandmother's arms, the sob escaping before she could stop it. Loretta hugged her tight, rocking slightly. Look at you. You've grown taller. And heavier, too. That's a good sign. Richard watched quietly, hands in his pockets. After several minutes, he cleared his throat. Would you like to come in, Miss Green? I'll make some tea. They sat at the kitchen table. The rain softened outside. Loretta cupped the warm mug with both hands, her fingers trembling slightly. I had pneumonia, she explained. Knocked me out for almost a month. When I came to, the shelter said Anna was gone. I thought she ran away. I didn't know, her voice cracked. I didn't know someone had taken her in. She didn't run, Richard said gently. She saved my son's life. That's how we met. Loretta turned to Anna. Is it true? Anna nodded. He was hurt. I couldn't just leave him. Tears filled Loretta's eyes. That's your mama's heart, baby. She was like that too. They sat in a silence filled with more meaning than words could hold. Then Richard cleared his throat again. Miss Green, I know this isn't easy, but I need to ask, what are your intentions? Loretta looked up, startled. You mean, do I want her back? Yes. The old woman exhaled slowly. I want her safe. That's all I ever wanted. But Lord knows I ain't got much. I'm staying at a halfway house now, trying to get back on my feet. I got a job at a laundromat starting next week, but... She looked at Anna, eyes full of love and resignation. She's better off here. At least for now. Anna reached across the table and held her grandmother's hand. Can we see each other sometimes? If he'll allow it, Loretta said softly. I will, Richard answered immediately. As long as the court agrees. Loretta smiled faintly. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Richard nodded. You can call me Richard. That night, Anna couldn't sleep again, but for a different reason. This time, her thoughts didn't spiral with fear or dread, but with something gentler. Hope. Richard sat beside her on the stairs, sharing a bowl of popcorn Ethan had forgotten in the microwave. Did I do the right thing? She asked suddenly. About what? Not going back. Staying here. Richard looked at her. You didn't run away from something, Anna. You ran toward something. That's different. She smiled slightly. I just didn't want her to think I forgot her. She knows. You reminded her just by being the person she raised you to be. Anna leaned against the wall. I think maybe I have two families now. Richard chuckled. That's twice the chores. She rolled her eyes. You're not funny. 2 days later, Richard sat in court again, this time with Loretta beside him. The judge reviewed the updated case files, now including Loretta's reappearance, her medical reports, and the statement she'd given expressing her support for Anna staying with Richard until her situation stabilized. This is a rare circumstance, Judge Cook said, glancing between Richard and Loretta. But I see no animosity here. Only care. Loretta nodded. He's doing right by her. That's more than most can say. Cook smiled. Then we'll extend temporary guardianship for another 90 days. I'll expect updates every month, including reports from both parties. Anna squeezed Loretta's hand, and for the first time in a long time, The future didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something to build. But even as things stabilized, trouble brewed elsewhere. In a dingy corner of Reggie's favorite bar, he sat nursing a black eye. Word had gotten out that he'd been poking around the Bennett estate. Some people didn't like that. People with money. People who weren't afraid to act without leaving fingerprints. He was bitter, but not stupid, which was why he'd started collecting things. Photos, emails, a tip about a past mistake Richard once made during a real estate deal. Nothing major, just enough to raise eyebrows. And now, he had a name. A blogger. A woman known for spinning small stories into viral takedowns. He lit a cigarette and pulled out his burner phone. Time to stir the pot. Because if he couldn't touch the girl directly, he'd bring everything crashing down around her. And this time, he wouldn't miss. The following Monday began like any other. Ethan and Anna walked to the car under the crisp morning sky, their backpacks thudding lightly with each step. Richard sipped his black coffee by the front window, already dressed in his tailored gray suit, phone pressed between shoulder and ear as he navigated the day's meetings. But 9:17 a.m. changed everything. An alert popped onto his phone. Breaking, billionaire philanthropist under fire for allegedly buying custody of homeless girl. The article came from a fringe but growing online outlet called The Mirror Post. Known for conspiracy-laced exposés and social media sensationalism, it was run by a woman named Trina Malloy, a blogger with a taste for scandal and a disdain for nuance. Richard clicked the link. The headline was loud, the tone sharper. The opening paragraph spun a familiar narrative. White billionaire takes in poor black girl with tragic past. Is it charity or control? Worse, there were quotes. Anonymous, bitter, from someone who knew details they shouldn't. She's just a pawn in his PR machine, one said. He's hiding something. He always island. Then came the gut punch. A blurry photo of Anna standing in front of Westbridge Elementary, holding Ethan's hand. Underneath it, a child caught in a story she doesn't understand. Richard's coffee mug hit the marble counter with a loud crack. By 9:30, his assistant, Nadine, had called an emergency meeting. His legal team, PR consultants, and foundation board sat stiffly around the long oak table. We're getting hammered on social, Nadine reported. The story's trending on X. People are calling it Billionaire Baby Snatcher. Hashtag and all. Richard ran a hand over his face. What's our move? Silence won't work, said Carla, head of PR. But aggression won't either. We need transparency. A statement that doesn't read defensive. Should we file defamation? One lawyer asked. Not yet, Richard said, voice low but firm. We don't throw gasoline on a fire we haven't measured. Meanwhile, Anna sat in her classroom, oblivious at first. It wasn't until recess that a classmate approached her. Hey, the girl whispered. Why are you in the news again? Anna blinked. What? People are saying you're not really part of Mr. Bennett's family. That he just took you in to look good. Anna's stomach dropped. She turned and saw 3 other kids huddled around a phone, reading something, whispering, glancing at her. The world tilted. Her ears rang. By the time Ethan found her, Anna was in the nurse's office, sitting quietly with her hoodie pulled low, fingers clenched into her jeans. They're saying stuff again, she said without looking at him. I know, he said. Dad saw it. He's fixing it. Anna finally looked up. Can he fix everything? Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he sat beside her, their shoulders touching. At home that evening, Richard sat with Anna at the kitchen island. A laptop was open between them, displaying a draft of the Foundation's official response. Anna read it slowly. It's good, but it's not mine. Richard raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I mean, I want to say something too, in my voice. He hesitated. You sure? It's a lot of pressure. A lot of noise. She nodded. They keep trying to talk over me. Let me speak. He exhaled, then smiled. All right. You write it. I'll back you. Anna's letter went live the next morning. It wasn't long, just 5 paragraphs. It told her story, simply and plainly. How she had lived. what she had seen, how she had chosen to stay and help Ethan, how Richard had never once made her feel like anything but a person with a voice, with choices, with dignity. She ended with, "You can question his motives, but don't question my worth. I know who I am, and I chose to be here." Within hours, the tide began to shift. Not completely, some still clung to their outrage like armor. But others, teachers, advocates, foster parents, shared the letter, praised her courage, pointed out how dangerous it was to strip a child of agency under the guise of truth. Trina Malloy doubled down. She released a follow-up post filled with speculation about Richard's past business dealings, including a vague reference to an old zoning dispute in Harlem, claiming he displaced low-income families for luxury condos. "It's a smear job," Nadine said, "and clearly timed." Richard nodded. "But this time, we respond with facts." They pulled records, interviewed residents, released a clear breakdown of the Harlem project, revealing that not only had Richard not forced anyone out, but that he had funded over 70% of the affordable housing preserved in the process. Trina tried to pivot, but the narrative began slipping from her grip. That weekend, Loretta came to visit. She brought homemade sweet potato pie, wrapped in foil, and a stack of old photos: Anna's mom at 14, Anna as a toddler in a plastic kiddie pool. "You know," Loretta said, watching Anna place one photo into a silver frame, "I was scared when you stayed with him. Thought maybe you'd forget where you came from." Anna looked up. "I didn't forget. I just added more to who I am." Loretta smiled. "Well, baby, who you are is something fierce." Richard entered the room then, holding 2 mugs of hot cider. "We got word from Judge Cook," he said. "She's requesting an early hearing. Says she's seen enough progress to discuss permanent guardianship." Anna's heart stopped. "Permanent?" Loretta nodded slowly. "You ready for that?" Anna took a deep breath. "Yeah, I think I am." But just as peace settled again, a phone rang. Richard answered. His eyes narrowed. He turned away from the room as he listened, jaw tightening. "What is it?" Anna asked when he returned. Richard glanced at her, then at Loretta, then sighed. "That blogger," he said. "She's not done. Someone gave her a sealed juvenile report. She's threatening to publish a piece about your mother. About the night she died." Anna froze. "She says if we don't stop weaponizing sympathy, she'll tell the world your mom was arrested the same year you were born. That she had addiction issues. That she lost custody once before." Richard knelt beside her. "None of that defines her. Or you. But you need to know this is what she's trying to use." Anna's voice was a whisper. "Can she do that?" "It's illegal," Richard said. "But she's counting on the damage being done before we can stop it." Loretta shook her head. "They always go after the mother." Anna stood slowly. Her hands were trembling, but her voice was clear. "Let her try." Richard looked at her, surprised. "Are you sure?" Anna nodded. "If she wants to write the story, fine. But this time, we tell it first. The truth. All of it." She looked Richard square in the eyes. "If people are going to talk about my mom, they're going to know her heart, not just her mistakes." And just like that, the next battle wasn't about survival. It was about legacy. Richard sat in his study late into the night, phone to his ear, fingers drumming the edge of a legal folder. "I understand, yes. But we need to move fast. If Trina Malloy goes live with that story, the damage will be near irreversible, even if it's illegal." He paused, listening. "We have the truth, but the truth needs air, not silence." He ended the call and exhaled sharply, glancing at the photo on his desk: Anna and Ethan, arms around each other, both smiling, pure and unscripted. The next morning, the plan was already in motion. Anna sat in front of the camera in a soft blue sweater. Loretta to her left, Richard to her right. Behind them was a simple bookshelf, filled with real books, not props, books her mother once read aloud, poems that Loretta used to recite over bowls of cornbread and beans. The camera light blinked red. She began, "My name is Anna Green. I'm 12 years old. I've lived in places most people would call broken. But my story didn't start with tragedy. It started with a woman named Camilla." Loretta reached for her hand, squeezing gently. "She was my mother, Anna continued. People may write headlines about the worst things she went through, but I remember the best things she gave me. Like how she used to hum while brushing my hair, or how she held me so tight the night our building lost heat and said, "Cold don't stand a chance when love is near." Richard blinked, looking down. Anna's voice didn't shake. My mom struggled. She had addiction in her past, yes. But she also had dreams. She wanted to get clean. She fought for me. Even when the world told her she wouldn't win. She lost once. But she got me back. She was getting better until she wasn't. Until one man decided her life didn't matter. She paused, and that man was Reggie. Loretta's gasp was soft, but it echoed in the room. I never told the full story before, Anna said. Not because I was afraid, but because I wasn't ready to carry her pain and mine at the same time. Now I am. They uploaded the video less than an hour later. Within minutes, the views surged. By noon, national reporters were picking it up. She flipped the narrative, Nadine said, pacing the foundation office. She didn't just defend her mother, she honored her. Richard nodded. And left no room for doubt. Back in her room, Anna scrolled through comments. Some hateful, some ignorant, but most were full of love. Thank you for naming your mother. That takes courage. My mom was an addict too. But she loved us. You reminded me of that. Camilla Green. I won't forget that name. Anna didn't smile. But something in her shoulders relaxed. A knot that had been there for years began to loosen. Across the city, Reggie watched the video on his cracked phone screen. His expression was unreadable. Jaw tight. Cigarette trembling in his fingers. Little witch, he muttered. His drinking buddy grunted. She's winning, man. Public's on her side. Reggie slammed his glass down. Not for long. But even as he spoke, doubt seeped in. He had underestimated her, her fire, her voice, her refusal to break. And now, she had a platform. One he couldn't silence. Yet he wasn't finished. He picked up the burner phone and dialed a number. It rang twice. Yeah, a gravelly voice answered. It's time, Reggie said. I want eyes on her. The house, the school, everywhere. You paying double? You'll get what you want. Then consider it done. Reggie ended the call and looked back at the video. He paused it on Anna's face, those eyes. So much like Camilla's. A chill ran down his spine. The past wasn't just haunting him, it was chasing him. The next day, Richard received a call from Judge Cook's clerk. She's requested the final hearing be moved up, the clerk said. There's pressure from both sides, and she'd like to address it before it becomes a circus. When? 3 days from now. Richard closed his eyes for a moment. We'll be there. He didn't tell Anna that night. Not yet. Instead, he watched her from the doorway as she painted at the kitchen table, her brush dancing through hues of violet and gold. Is that a sunset? He asked. No, she replied. It's a sunrise. There's a difference. He nodded, walking over. Can I ask why? Because one means something is ending, she said. But this means something is starting. The morning of the hearing, Anna dressed carefully. Not in anything fancy, just a navy blue dress and the silver necklace her mother once gave her, the one Loretta had kept wrapped in cloth all these years. It was slightly tarnished, but warm against her skin. Loretta met them at the courthouse steps. Ethan stayed home with Marcus, just in case. Anna didn't ask why. But she knew. Security was tighter than usual. Reporters loitered outside. A few tried to shout questions. Anna, is this your final word? Are you afraid of being returned to foster care? She didn't answer. She just walked. Inside, the courtroom was quiet, serious. Judge Cook looked older today, perhaps weighed down by the media noise, or by the stakes that now surrounded this young girl's life. Let's proceed, she said. Richard's attorney presented first a calm, thorough review of Anna's well-being, her academic progress, her mental health. Then came Loretta's testimony full of grace, acknowledging her limits, her love, her wish for Anna to thrive. Finally, Anna stood. Judge Cook addressed her gently. Miss Green, You understand that your voice matters here? Yes, Your Honor. Then I'd like to hear it. Anna didn't read from paper. She didn't recite a speech. She simply spoke. I'm not perfect, and I've seen things I wish I hadn't. But I also know what home feels like. It's not about money, or houses, or being in the news. She looked at Richard. It's about being seen. It's about not having to sleep with your shoes on in case someone kicks you out. It's about someone remembering how you take your tea, or asking how your day was even if the day wasn't good. Then she turned back to the judge. I've had a lot of people tell me who I am. I think it's time I get to decide that myself. Judge Cook smiled softly. And who do you say you are? I'm Anna Camilla Green, and this is where I belong. The courtroom was still. Then the judge nodded. I believe that too. And with one stroke of her pen, everything changed. The ruling had barely sunk in when the first threat arrived. It wasn't a bombshell, not the kind that made headlines. No. It came quietly slid beneath the front gate of the Bennett estate, inside a plain white envelope. No return address, no name. Inside, just one sentence, typed in a bold courier font. You think paper changes blood? Richard read it once, twice, then folded it and placed it inside his jacket pocket. When Anna came downstairs for breakfast, he didn't mention it. Not yet. She was still glowing from the judge's final decision. Her steps lighter, her eyes wide open in a way they hadn't been since that first night he found her shivering next to Ethan. But Richard knew shadows didn't disappear just because a judge said the sun had risen. The following week was filled with motion. Legal confirmations, changes to school records, updates to health insurance. Richard's team moved efficiently, ticking boxes, filing documents, ensuring that Anna's place in the family was not only emotional, but airtight under the law. One evening, as he signed yet another form, Anna leaned on the doorframe to his study. Do all kids come with this much paperwork? She asked. Richard chuckled. Only the ones worth everything. She smiled. Good answer. But beneath her grin, he noticed the way she fidgeted with her bracelet, the one Loretta had given her, woven from thread and tiny silver beads. It was her nervous tell. Something was off. He closed the file. Talk to me. Anna hesitated. Have you ever forgiven someone who didn't say sorry? Richard leaned back, considering her. Yes, but it wasn't for them. It was for me. Carrying anger is like drinking poison and hoping the other person gets sick. Anna nodded slowly. What if the person's still around, still watching? Richard's hand twitched toward the envelope in his pocket, still unopened in front of her. But he didn't pull it out. Not yet. Is Reggie still trying to contact you? She shook her head. Not directly, but sometimes. I just feel it. Like when the wind changes, and you know a storm's coming. Richard stood and walked toward her, resting a hand on her shoulder. If a storm's coming, you won't face it alone. That night, Loretta called. Her voice was tight, controlled, but behind it was fear. I think someone's been watching my building, she said. 2 nights now. I seen the same man in a black hoodie, standing across the street. Doesn't smoke, doesn't talk, just stands. Did you report it? Richard asked. They said unless he breaks in, there's nothing they can do. Pack a bag, Richard said. You're coming here for a while. Anna didn't protest when she heard the news. But her face tightened, and her appetite vanished. Later that night, she sat on the back patio, wrapped in a blanket, watching the city lights blink in the distance. Ethan joined her, 2 mugs of cocoa in hand. You think it'll ever be normal? She asked. Ethan shrugged. What's normal? I don't know. Going to school without someone whispering about you. Sleeping without checking the locks twice. Ethan handed her a mug. Dad says normal is overrated. He says real peace is knowing you can get through the not normal stuff. Anna stared into her cocoa. I want to believe that. Then believe it. You've already been through worse. She smiled faintly. Thanks, nerd. But peace, as always, was short-lived. 3 nights later, Marcus Kane called. His voice was lower than usual. We picked up chatter. Reggie's planning something. We don't have all the pieces. but it's bigger than a smear campaign. Richard's jaw clenched. He's targeting Anna? Maybe you, maybe both. All I know is, he's desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. What's your recommendation? Increase security, limit public appearances, and? Marcus paused. Have a conversation with Anna. She needs to know that being brave doesn't mean being exposed. Lad. The conversation happened the next morning, after Anna came down from her room with her hoodie pulled tight, headphones around her neck. Richard met her at the kitchen counter. Can we talk? He asked gently. Anna tilted her head. About Reggie? Yes. She took a breath, then nodded. I've been waiting. They sat, just the two of them. Loretta and Ethan were out grocery shopping. The house was quiet. He's escalating, Richard said. And that means we need to be smart. Anna folded her hands. Do you think he's going to hurt me? I don't know. But I know he's angry. And I know he's reckless. I'm not scared of him. I know, Richard said. But I also know that sometimes bravery looks like stepping back, not stepping up. Anna looked at him. You want me to hide? I want you to be safe. She stared at the marble countertop for a long moment. Then, okay. Richard blinked. Okay? I'll step back. Not because I'm afraid, but because I want to be here. I want to be alive and free, and I can't do that if I'm always looking over my shoulder. He exhaled slowly, a quiet wave of pride washing over him. You're growing up fast. I had to, she said, but I don't have to do it alone anymore. The new routine began that afternoon. No more solo walks to school. A security detail followed discreetly in an unmarked car. Her teachers were briefed. Her classroom seat was moved to face the door. It was invisible protection, but it was there. Anna didn't like it, but she accepted it. And then came the invitation. A national morning show wanted her and Richard to appear together. To talk about the adoption. The foundation. The video she made. The invitation was framed as celebration, but Richard knew better. Publicity was both sword and shield. Sometimes, it protected. Other times, it cut. He let Anna decide. I want to go, she said, after thinking it through, but only if we do it my way. What's your way? No makeup team, no fancy dresses, just us, real. Richard smiled. Then that's what we'll do. They sat together on set 2 days later. Lights, cameras, nervous producers buzzing around. The host was kind, warm eyes, practiced voice. So, Anna, she said, what do you want people to remember most about your journey? Anna didn't hesitate. That I'm not a story someone else wrote. I'm writing it now. And I want other kids to know they can too. The host smiled. Beautifully said, but in the control room, someone else was watching. Reggie. He leaned close to the screen, eyes twitching with rage. You think you're untouchable now, he muttered. But even as he said it, his hands shook. Anna had taken everything he tried to use against her and turned it into armor. And if he wanted to break her now, it would take more than words. Rain drummed softly against the windows of the Bennett estate that evening, a steady rhythm that filled the silence like a lullaby trying to calm a world that refused to settle. Anna sat on the floor of the living room with Ethan, both surrounded by colored pencils and scraps of paper. They were designing superhero logos for a class project, though only one of them took it seriously. My guy's name is Captain Chill, Ethan said proudly, holding up a sketch of a stick figure with sunglasses and a popsicle. He defeats villains by freezing their bad moods, Anna chuckled. He looks like a crossing guard on vacation. Exactly. That's his disguise. Richard watched from the hallway, a soft smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. In moments like this, the world outside didn't exist. No media. No Reggie. No weight of the past pressing against their peace. Just crayons and laughter. But peace never lingered long. Marcus arrived just past 9, his coat soaked and face drawn with tension. Richard met him in the library, away from the kids' ears. Marcus placed a thin file on the table. Inside were grainy photos, one of Reggie meeting with a man whose face was familiar. Who's that? Richard asked. Name's Dennis Voss. Known associate of an old street crew in South Bronx. Word is, he owes Reggie money, and Reggie offered him a job instead. What kind of job? Tracking Anna. Maybe more. We intercepted a message Voss sent through an encrypted burner. It mentions retrieving leverage. Richard's jaw tightened. Kidnapping. Marcus nodded. We're stepping it up. Extra guards, off-duty cops, fully vetted. No more playing defense. Richard stared at the photos, then slowly closed the folder. This ends, one way or another. The next morning, Anna was unusually quiet during breakfast. She pushed her cereal around in slow circles, her eyes fixed on something far away. You okay? Richard asked gently. She nodded, then shook her head. I had a dream. I was back in the alley where I found Ethan. But this time, no one came. Richard leaned in. But that didn't happen. I know. But it felt like something's coming. Like I have to go back there, not the alley, but something like it. Richard hesitated. Dreams can be echoes, or warnings. Anna met his eyes. Or both. Well, she wasn't just growing up. She was tuning into a part of herself that had learned to read danger in the wind. That afternoon, Richard called an emergency meeting in the Foundation's secure boardroom. Nadine, Marcus, Carla, and Loretta sat around the table. We need to control this before it explodes, Richard said. Malloy's quiet now. But someone's feeding her. Voss is circling. Reggie's desperate. This isn't just about protecting Anna anymore. It's about stopping the pattern. Carla tapped her tablet. We could go public again this time. Expose the pressure Anna's under. Frame it as a broader issue. How kids from hard backgrounds are still hunted, even after being rescued. Loretta looked up, eyes narrowed. But that puts her back in the crosshairs. No, Marcus said. It turns the spotlight on the predators instead. It forces them out of the shadows. Richard nodded. Then we use it. But on our terms. 2 days later, the Foundation held a private event, technically a youth empowerment panel. But with a quiet undercurrent of revelation, Anna sat on stage beside Richard and 3 other teens from vulnerable backgrounds, each telling their story. When it was Anna's turn, she stood. I'm not a symbol, she began. I'm not someone's redemption story. I'm not anyone's headline. I'm a kid who saw things, survived them, and is still figuring out how to be okay with that. She paused, then added. But what I won't do is pretend the danger ends just because the adoption papers are signed. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. There are people who want to hurt kids like me. Not because we did anything wrong, but because we remind them of the truth. That we exist. That we speak. That we remember. She looked straight at one of the cameras, her voice steady. If you're watching this and you're one of them, know this. You're not invisible anymore. Neither are we. That night, the video went viral. But so did something else. An anonymous tip landed in the inbox of a local journalist who had quietly followed Anna's story since the beginning. Attached were photos, audio files, documents linking Reggie to a string of extortion attempts over the past 5 years, including one against a single mother who vanished under mysterious circumstances. The reporter hesitated only long enough to verify them, then published the story at midnight. By dawn, Reggie's face was plastered across every news channel in the city, and by noon, he was in custody. Anna sat on the couch, knees tucked beneath her, watching the news unfold. The headline scrolled slowly across the bottom of the screen. Key figure in adoption harassment case arrested on federal charges. She didn't cheer. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "It's done." Richard sat beside her. Not all of it, but a piece of it. She leaned into his side. That's enough for today. Later that week, the police uncovered a stash of burner phones, payment records, and a notebook Reggie had kept sloppy, scrawled, but full of threats. Some targeted Richard. Others were aimed at Malloy, whom he'd turned on after she refused to publish one of his later stories. Reggie had no loyalty, just hunger. When Anna saw the notebook, she didn't ask to read it. She handed it to Marcus and said simply, "Burn it." Spring crept into the city with longer days and lighter coats. For the first time in months, Anna walked to school without the unmarked car following close behind. She still checked her surroundings. She still carried a small keychain alarm, but the fear didn't ride her shoulders like it used to. One afternoon, after class, she sat by herself on the bleachers, scribbling in her notebook. A girl from science class approached. "Hey," the girl said, "I saw your video. You're brave." Anna looked up. "I'm trying." The girl hesitated. "If you ever want to hang out, we have a book club at the library. It's small, but nice." Anna smiled. "Maybe." The girl smiled back, then left. And just like that, a door opened, not with a bang, but a whisper. That night, as Richard closed the final report from Marcus, he looked out the window at the soft orange hue of dusk washing over the city. Anna joined him, holding 2 mugs of cocoa. "You okay?" she asked. He took the cup, nodded. "Better than okay." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Anna said, "You know what I'm scared of now?" "What?" "That I won't know how to live without the fight." Richard looked at her, then gently replied, "Then we learn how to live in peace together. One day at a time." She nodded slowly. "Okay. But if peace gets boring, we'll find a way to make it interesting." Anna laughed, her voice clear, untangled for the first time in what felt like forever. And in that moment, peace didn't seem so distant after all. A month passed. Spring matured into a soft bloom across the city. The tulips Richard planted in the front garden ones Anna helped pick out at the corner nursery had begun to open. Their petals wide, fearless. For the first time in a long time, the Bennett house felt still. Not like a place bracing for something, but a place exhaling. Yet silence, no matter how comforting, always held echoes. And some echoes didn't fade, they waited. One Saturday morning, as Anna rummaged through the attic for old craft supplies, she found a box labeled Camilla. Her mother's name, scrawled in Loretta's careful script. She sat cross-legged in the dusty light filtering through the small round attic window, the box between her knees. Inside were letters, dozens of them. Some opened, others still sealed. They were addressed to no one, just pages and pages of ink, her mother's voice trapped in time. "Dear baby," one began, "I don't know if you'll ever read this, but today you turned 3. You smiled at me like I was still worth loving, and I broke all over again." Anna read until her eyes stung. Each letter was a quiet reckoning. Her mother didn't just leave pain behind, she left love. Ragged, imperfect, but real. That night, Anna brought the box downstairs. She placed it on the kitchen island where Richard was finishing the last line of a speech for an upcoming fundraiser. "She wrote these for me," Anna said softly. "But I think she was writing them for herself, too." Richard looked up. "Can I read them?" Anna nodded. "Just not tonight." He respected that. Some healing needed the hush of midnight, not the weight of company. A few days later, Ethan came home from school quieter than usual. He slumped into the couch, backpack forgotten at the door. Anna sat beside him, pulling her knees to her chest. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded. "Kind of. Want to talk about it?" Ethan hesitated. "Some kids at lunch. They were talking about you. Again. Saying your dad only adopted you because it made him look good. That it was a big publicity stunt." Anna didn't flinch. "Not anymore." "And what did you say?" "I told them they didn't know anything, that you saved my life, that I wouldn't even be here if it weren't for you." Anna smiled faintly. "You're a good brother." He looked at her. "You're the best one I've got." Richard decided to take them both on a weekend retreat upstate. A quiet cabin, no phones, no cameras, just fresh air and time. Loretta joined too, baking cornbread in a cast-iron pan and telling stories about summers from her Mississippi youth. One evening, while the boys played cards inside, Loretta and Anna sat on the porch swing under a sky brushed with stars. "Your mama," Loretta began. "She was the strongest weak person I ever knew, and I mean that with love. She had fire in her, but it burned her too." Anna was quiet. Loretta continued. "When she found out she was pregnant, she told me she was terrified. Not of being a mom, but of not being enough. She was enough, Anna whispered. She was, Loretta said. She just never believed it. But you carry her better parts. You carry her fight. But you also carry your own peace. That's what she never found. Anna leaned her head on Loretta's shoulder. Sometimes I hear her in my dreams, just humming, no words. That's memory, Loretta said. That's love, echoing back. The next week, Richard stood before a crowd of donors and community leaders at the Westbridge Foundation's annual gala. The speech was short, heartfelt, but what stayed with the audience wasn't what he said, it was what Anna said. She stood up midway through dinner, walked to the podium without invitation or prompt. My name is Anna Green, she began, steady as stone. Some of you know me. Some of you know about me. There's a difference. A hush settled over the room. I've been the headline. I've been the girl with the past. But I'm more than what happened to me. I'm more than what people did or didn't do. She glanced at Richard, who nodded slowly. I'm a sister, a daughter, a survivor, and I'm building something new inside myself and around me. She paused. If you came here tonight to write a check, thank you. But if you came here thinking you're saving someone, think again. We don't need saviors. We need people who stay. People who don't run when the story gets hard. And with that, she stepped down. The applause rose not like thunder but like a standing ovation at a symphony's final note. Earned. Resonant. Lasting. That night, after they returned home, Richard tucked Ethan in and walked into Anna's room. She was seated at her desk, one of her mother's letters in hand. She said once. Anna murmured. That the hardest part of love was letting yourself believe it was real. Richard walked over. And do you? Anna looked up at him. Yeah. I do. He knelt beside her. Me too. She placed the letter back into the box, then looked out the window. It's almost summer, she said. Feels like everything's blooming. It is, Richard said. Even us. Anna smiled. Then quietly she added. You know what I want to do next? What? Help someone else. Not as a project. Just be what I needed. Richard's eyes welled slightly. Then that's what you'll do. In that moment, there was no past pressing in, no headlines whispering judgment. Just the sound of a girl choosing who she would become, and a man who would stand beside her for every step. And outside, beneath a sky that no longer threatened rain, the tulips bloomed brighter. Anna stood at the entrance of Hollow Creek Youth Center, her heart steady but expectant. The sun filtered through scattered clouds, casting soft shadows on the sidewalk. She adjusted the strap of her backpack and looked over at Richard, who stood beside her with his sleeves rolled and a soft grin playing at the corners of his mouth. You sure about this? He asked. Anna nodded. I'm not the same girl who walked out of that alley with Ethan. And if I'm going to carry what happened to me, I want it to mean something. Inside, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and cinnamon-scented candles someone had probably lit to soften the sterile feel. The director of the center, Miss Rainey, greeted them warmly, an older black woman with eyes that had seen too much and a laugh that defied it all. I remember you, she said, clasping Anna's hands. We were all watching your story. You shook this whole city. I didn't want to shake it, Anna replied. I just didn't want to disappear in it. Miss Rainey smiled, eyes moist. Well, baby, you didn't, and now you're here. That matters more than you know. They led Anna to a modest multi-purpose room with a mismatched rug, a whiteboard with dried marker stains, and 8 folding chairs arranged in a circle. 5 teens sat waiting, each one carrying the invisible armor of survival. Some leaned back with folded arms. One boy tapped his leg rapidly. A girl with purple braids didn't look up from her phone. Anna didn't try to impress them. She sat down, waited for silence, then said, I'm not here to fix you. I'm not a counselor. I'm just someone who got through something. And maybe you have too. One boy scoffed. Yeah? You got through it with a billionaire daddy. What about the rest of us? Anna didn't flinch. I didn't start with a billionaire. I started in shelters, sleeping next to vending machines, hoping no one saw me cry. My mother died scared, and I thought I would too. But I didn't, and not because someone handed me a mansion. It was because someone saw me and stayed. The boy said nothing. Anna continued. I can't promise things will get easier, but I can promise that your voice matters, even if it shakes. The girl with the purple braids finally looked up. That's a good line, she murmured. It's not a line, Anna said. It's what I had to tell myself to survive. Afterward, Richard drove her home in silence for a while before finally speaking. You did good in there. Anna looked out the window. I don't know if it helped. It did, he said. I've learned that sometimes helping doesn't look like saving. It looks like standing still with someone in the storm. She turned to him. You ever feel like you're still in the storm? Even when the sky's clear? All the time, he said. But I've learned to stop waiting for the thunder. Sometimes, the quiet is real. Anna leaned back, letting his words settle like rain. Later that week, Anna received an invitation to speak at a citywide youth advocacy conference. They wanted her on the opening panel, alongside young leaders who'd overcome addiction, homelessness, violence. Richard hesitated at first, not because he doubted her, but because he knew what exposure cost. You don't owe the world your pain, he reminded her. I know, Anna said. But I want to offer my voice not as a story, but as proof that broken doesn't mean finished. The day of the conference arrived, and the city auditorium buzzed with hundreds of attendees, educators, social workers, teens from every borough. Anna wore a simple black blouse and jeans. No stage makeup, no polish, just her truth. When it was her turn, she stepped to the mic. My name is Anna Camilla Green, she began. You might have seen my face on a headline, but headlines only tell part of the story. The rest lives in the moments no one sees. She took a breath, eyes scanning the audience. I used to think my life started the day someone saved me. But it didn't. It started the day I stopped pretending I didn't need saving. A murmur of affirmation swept through the crowd. I met someone who didn't turn away, who didn't treat me like a project or a problem. He just stood with me until I remembered I was worth standing for. She paused, then smiled slightly. Now I want to be that person for someone else. Applause thundered across the auditorium, not because of performance, but because of resonance. Anna had cracked open the air and let the light in. Backstage, a young boy approached her. He was maybe 13, with wary eyes and a deep scar along his temple. You said something up there, he said quietly, about remembering you're worth standing for. Anna nodded. I haven't felt that in a long time. Anna knelt to his level. Then maybe you need someone to stand with you now. Until you do. He didn't cry. He just nodded. And that was enough. Back home, Richard received an email from a school principal in Queens. I saw the clip of Anna's talk. Would she be open to visiting our students? We have a lot of kids like her. They could use someone who speaks their language, not just the grammar, but the grammar of survival. Richard showed it to Anna. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at the photo on the living room wall, her and Ethan in the garden, grinning with dirt-covered hands and tulip bulbs in their palms. I think this is how it starts, she said. What does? Richard asked. The kind of change that sticks. One room at a time. He smiled. Then we better get you a calendar. One evening, after another visit to Hollow Creek, Anna sat with Loretta on the front porch, wrapped in a shared blanket as fireflies blinked in the garden. You're different, Loretta said. Good different? Solid different. Rooted. Anna thought for a moment. I don't feel finished. You're not, Loretta replied. None of us are. But baby, you're no longer just surviving. You're living. Anna closed her eyes and let the words sink in. She remembered all the places she'd slept where safety was a myth. All the meals where hunger lingered afterward. All the nights she lay awake wondering if her mother's blood would be her fate. But now, there was laughter in the halls. Shared meals. Warmth that wasn't conditional. And love real, steady, human love, not performative, not transactional. And she was offering it back. Piece by piece. Word by word. To every kid still standing in the storm, waiting for someone to see them. The fight wasn't over, but Anna was no longer just the girl who survived it. She was the voice that could carry others through it. The summer sun poured gently through the windows of the Bennett home, casting soft golden hues across the wooden floors. It was the kind of day people often took for granted, ordinary in the best way. Anna stood by the hallway mirror, adjusting the necklace Loretta had given her that morning. A single pendant hung from it, engraved with a simple phrase, "Still standing." Downstairs, Richard waited by the door, holding 2 travel mugs of tea. Ethan bounced behind him, his backpack slung lazily over one shoulder. "You ready, Miss Guest Speaker?" Richard asked, his eyes full of warmth and mischief. Anna rolled her eyes but smiled. "As I'll ever be." They were headed to Rosewood High School in the Bronx, a place that had recently launched a program for at-risk youth. The principal had invited Anna not just to speak, but to help design a mentorship program. What started as a single invitation had grown into a movement, one student, one story, one moment at a time. On the ride there, the streets of New York flashed by familiar, chaotic, alive. Anna watched as neighborhoods shifted from luxury storefronts to faded brick buildings and back again. She could trace her past along these streets like a map drawn in memory. "Do you think it ever really ends?" she asked, turning to Richard. "What?" "The feeling that something bad is waiting just around the corner." Richard considered her words. "I don't think it ends. I think we just stop letting it control the way we walk around the corner." She nodded, then looked out the window again, her hand brushing against the necklace. Rosewood High buzzed with the energy of teens trying to act unimpressed. As Anna entered the auditorium, several students glanced up from their phones, their curiosity hidden behind practiced boredom. But when she took the stage, no podium, no notes, just a stool and a steady voice, something shifted. She began not with her story, but with a question. How many of you have ever wanted to disappear not because you hated life, but because life kept forgetting you existed? Hands didn't shoot up, but she saw the stillness. The silence. The way some eyes blinked faster, some shoulders stiffened. That was enough. "I used to think silence was the safest place," Anna continued. "If I didn't speak, no one could use my words against me. But silence is where fear grows. And the longer you stay quiet, the more you start to believe the lies." She told them about Ethan, about the alley, about the night she dialed a stranger's number and changed her life. She didn't glorify it. She didn't make herself the hero. She made it real, tangible. By the end, the room was still, not silent in discomfort, but in solidarity. One girl raised her hand. "What if no one ever shows up?" Anna stepped down from the stage, walking toward her. "Then you keep surviving until someone does. And while you wait, remember you're not invisible just because others refuse to look." Afterward, a boy named Malik approached her. He was 15, tall and thin, with 2 old eyes and a fresh scar across his cheek. "You talked about trust," he said. "How do you rebuild it when it's been broken too many times?" Anna didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out one of the blank notebooks she always carried now. On the inside cover, she wrote, "Day 1. I am still here." She handed it to him. "Start by trusting that." Back at home, Richard received a letter in the mail. Handwritten. The penmanship wobbly but deliberate. It was from Anna's biological grandmother, a woman neither of them had heard from since the adoption. She'd seen Anna's latest talk online. Said she cried for hours. Said she regretted not fighting harder for her daughter. For Anna, she didn't ask for forgiveness. She only asked if one day, Anna might be willing to meet. Richard showed the letter to Anna that evening. She read it quietly, expression unreadable. After a long silence, she said, "Not yet, but someday." Richard nodded. "Your pace, your call." She smiled. Always. In the weeks that followed, Anna began organizing a summer workshop for girls in foster care. It was small, 10 students, a donated space, a few volunteers, but to her, it was sacred ground. The first session opened with a circle. She didn't ask for their traumas. She asked for their names, their favorite smells, their dream jobs. "You're not defined by what broke you," she told them. "You're defined by what you build after." One girl asked, "What if I don't know what I want to build?" Anna smiled. Then we'll figure it out together. One evening in late August, the family gathered on the rooftop terrace to watch the sunset. Loretta brought peach cobbler. Ethan played an old Motown record he found in a thrift store. The city stretched out before them like a promise. Richard raised a glass of sparkling cider. To peace. To finding home, Loretta added. To peach cobbler, Ethan said, grinning. Anna raised her glass last. To being seen, fully, even when it's messy. Ugh. They clinked glasses, laughter rising into the warm air. Afterward, Anna sat beside Richard, both of them watching as the skyline shimmered in gold and blush. You know, she said, I used to think the worst thing was being alone. But it's not. What is it then? Being surrounded by people and still feeling invisible. Richard nodded slowly. And now? Now I know the best thing is being seen by someone who refuses to look away. He reached over and gently squeezed her hand. I'm not going anywhere. I know, Anna whispered, and for the first time in her life, she believed it without hesitation. That night, Anna opened a fresh notebook. On the first page, she wrote, I am not a headline. I am not a statistic. I am not the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I am a girl with scars, with strength, with stories. I am still standing, and now I choose to rise. She closed the notebook, placed it beside her bed, and turned off the light. Outside, the city pulsed with life, and somewhere, in another quiet room, a child waited to be seen. Anna would be ready. The story of Anna teaches us that healing doesn't begin when someone rescues you, it begins when you believe you are worth being rescued. It reminds us that even the most broken beginnings can lead to powerful transformations when met with compassion, consistency, and courage. Through Anna's journey, we learn the importance of being present for others, not as saviors, but as steady hands and open hearts. Ultimately, it is a story about reclaiming one's voice, standing in truth, and becoming a beacon for those still lost in the dark.